My name is Peter Haldén, and since this is my first time here, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. I teach war and strategy, as well as physical fitness at the Swedish Defence University. I'm going to be talking about the first, not the second. We can do that later. And the things that I teach is action under conditions of uncertainty. I teach courage and virtue ethics. And I've also dealt with the traditions, myths, and rituals of warriors since antiquity. And I teach very practically minded people. I teach military officers. And I've found on numerous occasions that these classical heritages is something that resonates quite strongly with them. And this is quite thought-provoking, because these aren't necessarily scholars. They're really hands-on people. But yet, the classical inheritance is something that speaks to them. So, quite recently, the Holy Father made an intervention into strategic affairs. He claimed, he spoke to the hetman, the traditional or not so traditional war leader of Ukraine, and he said that, the person with the greatest courage and compassion is whoever shows the white flag of surrender, and therefore ends the war in Ukraine. The hetman, President Volodymyr Zelensky, instantly rebuked the Holy Father and said that Ukraine's flag is blue and yellow, and no other colors will replace them. Now, this episode made me think of the different ways that we have in understanding courage. Because, courage is something that we think we just know what it is. But there are actually a number of different ways of understanding culture. And I will be talking about three different ways, or three different routes of our understanding of culture: Christianity, the heroic epics, and virtue ethics. And note that this is really three ideal types. Of course, they're intertwined with each other, but I think for the sake of clarity, it's useful to think of them as three different strands, and they do conflict with each other quite a bit. But these are the three roots of European thinking, European civilizational thinking about courage, from the ancient world, from the pagan world, and the Christian world. So, let's start with Christianity. Christianity is very much a religion of courage, and it has a large tradition of heroic exemplars to fall back upon. So it's no coincidence that Pope Francis spoke the way he did. Christ is, of course, the primary exemplar of courage. He has the courage, he has the enormous guts to die on the cross for us. Although it is an enormously painful way of dying. So this is really the kernel of courage in the Christian tradition, the willingness to sacrifice oneself, to take pain and to take punishment in order to save others. And this is something that resonates in our everyday understandings of courage. But it's not self-preservation, it's not a chief of virtues here. And if you look at the New Testament, it's replete with references to fear and courage. When the apostles see the resurrected Christ, their first reaction is fear. But Christ says to them, "Do not be afraid. And cast aside your fear by accepting faith." So by having faith, you can actually be saved. And this is the antidote to courage, to fear. The way, so you don't really need courage, perhaps, in the same way as in the other traditions. But what you will be saved from is eternal damnation. So death and sin are linked together. And this tradition, of course, formed, the statements of Christ, the actions of Christ, have formed an enormously rich traditions in the martyrs like Saint Sebastian, and of course the warrior saints like St. Michael, who casts out Lucifer. So there is a very, very strong resonance of courage in the Christian tradition, but it's a particular form of courage. And it really is dependent very much on faith as a kind of mechanism to combat fear and to combat any kind of threats. Our next tradition is the heroic epic. We see this, since antiquity, in tales of Achilles. We see this in the pagan traditions. Beowulf. This is not a picture of Beowulf himself, it's just the movie poster. But it also lives on in, I was almost about to say people like Batman, but fictive characters like Batman, although he seems very, very real. And this is not really a philosophical tradition, but is a literary tradition, which has been enormously strong in influencing the way we see heroes. And we often equate courage and heroism. And most people, I think, would say that, well, heroes and some anti-heroes are courageous. But perhaps not all courage is heroic. And sometimes there are times and occasions when heroism is not really courage, but it's something else. And I'll talk a little bit about Achilles and Beowulf, not so much Batman. But what we see, what really unites the hero in heroic poetry, is that he's always a performer of exceptional deeds. He is, I mean, it's almost always a he. He's the overachiever par excellence. And this, in combination with this extreme individuality, is what gives him his character. Achilles is a very, very skilled warrior. He knows how to fight man to man. He knows how to fight in close combat with a chariot. But he also has this enormously strong driving force for others to recognize him, and know his triumphs. What Achilles fears most is being forgotten. If no one knows the name of Achilles anymore, Achilles has no meaning. And that's why he's so enormously keen to fight. He's not afraid of anything. I mean, he is invincible because his mother dipped him in water. But still, I mean, he's not afraid of physical pain, but he's afraid of having his individuality forgotten. Beowulf, our second hero, comes from the Dark Ages, from an Anglo-Saxon manuscript. And what Beowulf does is that the story is as follows. There's a terrible monster that's terrorizing Denmark and the king of Denmark. And Beowulf and his friends set out to rid the Danish court of this terrible monster, Grendel. And Beowulf, he is a fighter. He is courageous. But what he does when he faces Grendel is that he says, okay, well, the monster is unarmed. It doesn't have any armor. So I'm not going to fight with a sword, and I'm going to take off my chainmail. So we'll have a fair fight. And everyone says, like, yeah, this Beowulf guy, he is courageous. But he's also an unnecessary risk taker. And in modern military terms, he is jeopardizing the mission to free Denmark. So these two are maybe not guys you want in your unit. And hopefully we'll be able to weed out guys like this in selection. But if we turn to the virtue ethical tradition, this is a great image from a manuscript of a book by Giles of Rome, Achilles Romanus, where you see three knights here. You see one's running away, or one is fleeing the enemy. This is cowardice. One is charging ahead. But do you notice his shield? He has his shield lowered. He's not protecting himself properly. So it's like going into fight like this. This chap has got his shield up, so he's got a guard, and he's doing it very carefully and is aiming his lance. Now, Giles of Rome says that this may look like courage, but it isn't. It's foolhardiness, because he's taking unnecessary risks, because you want to have your shield up, you want to be protected. This is courage, knowing the dangers and not fleeing from them. So, maybe heroism is something different than courage. And it's quite interesting when you look at combat, when you look at fighting, these people who are afraid, who fear, they want the fight to be over as quickly as possible. And there are two ways in which this can happen. One is that you kill your opponent, and the other one is that that he kills you. You're killed. So this mad rush into combat might actually be the expression of intense fear. You just want this to be over. Okay? But the truly heroic is the one who has the guts to stay in the moment of fear and stay in the feeling of fear and be like, okay, well, I'm going to take this easy. I can take this fear, this inner emotion, and I will do the right thing. So if we turn to modern combat, this is an image of Antero Rocca from Tuntematon Sotilas, the unknown soldier, who's the prime hero. Okay? And we all know the scene, the archetypical cliché scene from a war movie, where where someone just rushes up to a tank, throws a grenade at it, he dies. But the tank is knocked out. Okay, and we consider this heroism. Okay, so he, well, it's often a he, is not afraid of this terrible monster, the rolling tank, okay? So the moral of the story is that the dead warrior is a hero, he's a truly courageous man, he sacrificed himself, kind of the Christian ideal, so that his comrades may live. I don't doubt for a moment that self-sacrifice is sometimes necessary in combat. It truly is. But you can consider another scene in which a soldier crouches down in a trench, like Antirocca, or behind cover, patiently hiding, preserving himself and his strength until the right occasion arises. Then, only then, after a period of nerve-wracking waiting, does he shoot a rocket-propelled grenade into the back of the tank, where the tank is most vulnerable, and knocks him out. This might not seem like heroism. It certainly isn't. But what he does is that he protects himself and he obeys the duty to stay alive. Because in virtue ethics, all the virtues are interconnected wholes, right? Because you can't be courageous without being prudent. You can't be prudent without being courageous and so on. So you need to take care of yourself in order to exercise true courage rather than just recklessness, okay? We call this force protection in modern armies. And another thing that's very important in virtue ethics is assuming responsibility. Assuming responsibilities for others, for the family, for the group, for the body politic as a whole, the politeia. And taking the correct steps to protect yourself as well as your unit really is that kind of stoic responsibility, the virtue ethics stoic responsibility. Because what you do then is that you live to fight another day to protect the civilians whose job it is to protect, your job it is to protect. And you protect the laws of your country and you protect the realm. So once again, Beowulf, put your chainmail on, please, because we really want Denmark to be safe now. Okay, so just take it easy. Okay? And an interesting thing, in many heroic epics, the hero is always an individual, right? It's Achilles. It's not like Achilles is the captain of this unit. Batman is a solitaire. He broods alone in his mansion. Superman is the only survivor from the planet Krypton. He is really alone. His hideout is called the Fortress of Solitude, by the way. Clint Eastwood's characters, they ride into town alone, they leave town alone. So the archetypal hero is not part of a team, and he's not the leader of a team for which he is responsible. So hence, he is this free-floating individual, and he doesn't really take on this responsibility to stay alive. So when we go back to Ukraine, what kind of situation is this? I think that, I mean, of course you can fall into the Christian tradition, or archetypally Christian tradition of saying, okay, well, lay down your arms, violence ceases. Okay, this is a good thing because no more people will be killed. I agree with this. But it also rests on the bet that the enemy will allow you to live. And when you face the Russian army, the odds aren't really great, okay? So it is a kind of leap of faith when you do so. But I think that Aegidus Romanus, Giles of Rome, and perhaps Marcus Aurelius would ask, what kind of responsibilities, what kind of obligations does Ukraine have? And what would they neglect if they lay down their arms? I think that they would say that, well, you would neglect the responsibilities you have for the mission, for the unit, but also for the people you're fighting with, but also for the civilians that you're protecting. You're standing in the way. You're standing between them and I was almost about to say the Red Army, but the Russian army. And this is quite important. But you're also protecting the laws, leges. And this is terribly important. Not just the laws of your own polity, but what Ukraine and her Western allies do is that they are certainly doing the fighting, but we are helping as much as we can. Probably we should do more. They have a duty to the international commonwealth, and we have a duty to the international commonwealth, the republic of the world, which is governed and bound together by law, to stay alive and to stay in the fight. Because Russia has violated these laws and also the virtues upon which these laws depend. So hence, we have a wider obligation, and they have a wider obligation. We're not equals in this fight. We have Ukrainian colleagues coming to visit us, and they're bearing the brunt of it. But nevertheless, responsibility to the international commonwealth is, I think the Stoics would say, sacrosanct. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Peter, many years ago, Hans Magnus Enzensberger wrote an essay extolling the heroes of retreat, with Mikhail Gorbachev and General Yuselsky as the heroes, those who dared to say the game is over, retreat is a braver thing than moving ahead. Could Jaruzelski find himself finally in a similar position?
I think what Enzensberger was wrong about, what he didn't.
Zelensky, I was sorry.
But when he talks about the heroes of the retreat, is that these? I mean, Gorbachev was the head of a tyranny, of a tyrannical politeia. So of course he has to retreat from this in order to be virtuous. But when it comes to heroes of retreat, I mean, sometimes, of course, you need to realize that this fight is lost. And that is really a very, very, very bitter pill to swallow. And yes, so there is something to what the Holy Father said, that that might be a form of courage, also to say that look, the fight has been lost. You can't gain anymore.
Because we talked about Marshal Mannerheim realizing that the Winter War was lost. If he went on fighting, he would risk the lives of many more soldiers. He would risk the independence of his country. So he made this brave retreat, taking this horrible peace with the Russians.
Yes, indeed. And it's terrible to lose, I mean, a tenth of your country and much more of your population, and so on and so forth. But you have to face that, and also you have to beat your ego. And I think that would also be a very Stoic answer, to say that your ego is not the important thing here. And say, okay, well, you need to kill your ego and save the country. Whereas this for Achilles, this is just never an option, because his ego is just ballooning all over the place.
Thank you this far.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you.